The Delta threat is growing. We all know it. The majority of Americans, 61%, say the CDC's new guidance on masks is a good thing. Why? Because the variant is thriving, and too many people are getting sick for no good reason. And increasingly, the reason it's happening is bad reason, political poison. A closer look at that 61% shows you the real problem. 91% Democrats, 26% of Republicans. So how do we turn this pandemic around when too many are still anti-vaccine and anti-mask, and too many leaders on the right are feeding it? Do mandates help? Are they even worth it? Harry Enton joins me now in the COVID Command Center. First, partisan divide, yes or no, prove it.
My goodness gracious, partisan divide, it's wider than the Atlantic Ocean. Look at this, on vaccine mandates, my goodness gracious, we're talking 60-point gaps, and it doesn't, you can ask about it, whether businesses should require employees or restaurants requiring customers, but you can just see it, 60-point gap with Democrats overwhelmingly in favor, Republicans overwhelmingly against, and the partisan divide is becoming bigger on this issue. It's certainly wider than the divide on whether or not you have a vaccine or not. And I just am very worried for the state of this country as we go down the road, as these mandates start getting put into places like New York, where Republican customers, who knows what might happen. This divide is huge.
What is the issue?
Here's the issue. The issue to me in all of this is Republicans and Democrats just see concern about the virus differently, and they see whether or not the vaccines work tremendously differently, right? Concerned about the outbreak. Again, a majority of Democrats are concerned about the COVID-19 outbreak, 78% versus just 41% of Republicans. Are vaccines effective at preventing death? They are. We know that. We've been through these stats 1,000 times on this show. A majority of Democrats say yes. A minority of Republicans say yes. So basically what you're seeing is sort of, concern about the virus and vaccine effectiveness are sort of supercharging these thoughts on vaccine mandates and vaccines overall.
We're not the only ones that are bifurcated here, left, right? So we asked you to take a look internationally. They have left and right in a lot of different places. How do we stack up?
Poorly. I mean, look at this. So this is people in the last election, whether they voted Republican here in the States or conservative in Canada or in Great Britain. We looked at those folks and we asked whether or not they have at least one COVID-19 vaccine dose. Look at this. Just 50% of Trump voters have at least one dose. In Canada, the people who voted conservative last election, 69%. Look at that Great Britain number. My God, 94%. In Great Britain, in fact, what we see is the partisan split is reversed, with conservatives more likely than Labor or Liberal Democrats to get a vaccine dose. So, when I look at numbers like that, I look at right now the vaccine divide and the divide on masks and the divide on vaccine mandates, I say to myself, it didn't need to be that way. And yet it is. And the reason it is because you basically have a lot of Republican leaders out there, a lot of people in the conservative media who are supercharging this. And I'm hopeful that some of the more reasonable voices will go out there and say, the vaccine is safe, the vaccine's effective, you should go out and get that vaccine, because we're all Americans at the end of the day, just like they're all Great Britons over on the other side of the Atlantic, or they're all Canadians north of the border, and you can see they're acting as one, and right now we're not acting as one, and the rising coronavirus rates is basically the consequence of that.
We're all Americans, but we're not all being reasonable. And listen to it now, and I'll say it a million times between now and the midterms. The new voting demographic to watch will be the vaccinated. It'll be the majority of the left, the right, north, south, brown, black, white. The majority of every measurable demo that you have will be vaccinated. And it will be them being held hostage by the rest of this country. That's going to be the group to speak to. That's going to be the group that makes things happen. And maybe that will get us past this partisan divide. Harry Enton, the whiz. Remember what I said. And thank you for what you told us.
Thank you, my friend. And you know what? We just need to get past that divide, because, again, we're all Americans here.
The vaccine may be the unifier.
Yes.
Florida, struggling. Record hospitalizations. Why? Several reasons. But messaging does matter. And the governor there has been baited by President Trump, and he wants to have the fight. President Trump. President Biden. Trump loved him. And by the way, he's playing from his playbook. And it's working for him with popularity, but not for his state with the pandemic. So our next guest is running for Ron DeSantis' job. An interesting question for former Florida Governor Charlie Crist. What DeSantis is doing helps his numbers, but is hurting the state's numbers.